Hello, and welcome to the M is for Mama podcast. I'm your host, Abbie Halberstadt, happy wife, mama to 10, Bible-believing Christian. And we're just keeping on rolling with the birth stories today, but I have something really funny to tell you, which is that I am recording this. I don't know how funny it is, maybe a little bit more insane, but I'm recording this about 30 minutes before we head out on a giant trip to Europe. Our family planned this trip about 4 years ago, and then it was about to come to fruition. And just like so many of you have experienced, our trip got canceled because of COVID, because we were supposed to leave about 2 weeks after everything started shutting down. So we kind of crossed our fingers and prayed and held on with anticipation that maybe we would be able to transfer our tickets. Air France was who we had our tickets through, and they were very accommodating. And thankfully, we were able to cancel Airbnb, rentals, and all the things, not all of the things, but most of the things that we had booked because there were allowances for COVID. Well, it didn't so happen that we were able to rebook it in the time frame that we needed to be able to use our Air France tickets. And so we kind of kissed that dream goodbye. And we're content with it. We had 2-year-old newborn twins. We had 10 kids total at this point. When we had been traveling before, it would have been 8 kids. It just felt like maybe the Lord was saying no. And we were accepting of that, though disappointed, obviously. Well, about maybe June of last year, so a little less than a year ago, because today is May 1st. Oh my goodness. It's just May 1st has been coming for such a long time for our family because it's been the date of our departure for this big Europe trip. And so it's just occurring to me just now, May 1st. Wow, we made it. So about a year ago, we started revisiting the idea and we prayed about it, and we felt like we had freedom to tentatively start to plan again. And the big thing was that we wanted to be able to take someone with us that could help with the babies and Shiloh, that could be with them during nap time so that we could go do excursions with older kids and that they could get their rest. And the Lord worked out just the perfect person for that. And we're so excited about that. But the reason that I'm recording for you is that in planning for this, and also for my son's graduation, which happened yesterday. My oldest son, Ezra, graduated. You guys got to see him on the podcast several weeks ago. And so he is done with his first block of schooling. And we're excited to see what he does in the future. And also speaking engagements and all of this, I didn't get as many podcasts pre-recorded. And so we got all of our stuff ready to go. And I told Sean, I said, I think I'm going to try to record a birth podcast right before we leave. And he said, great, I have to go get batteries and run by the grocery store. I'll pack up all the kids. So here we are. I'm recording a podcast on the day we leave for a 45-day trip across 7 countries to Europe, which is just blowing my mind. Both the fact that I'm ridiculous enough to do this because I want you guys to have content, and also because just crazy that we're going to do this with 13 people, but we'll see how it goes. I'm excited for what the Lord has for us. So we ended with the twin girls' birth, and I told you that in many ways it was both the best birth that I've ever had and in some ways the least enjoyable because of all of the adrenal weird stuff, shakes, and kind of failure. What I felt like my body was doing was failing leading up to that. Well, fast forward a couple of years to Theo's birth. He's our number 6, and he actually was a twin. We lost his twin to vanishing twin syndrome at 8 weeks. They were able to see that because they can measure kind of the shadow of where the baby had been on the sonogram when we had a sonogram at 11 weeks. And so my body didn't do anything to give me any indication that that had happened with vanishing twin syndrome. Your body just reabsorbs everything and there's no bleeding or signs of miscarriage. So Theo is a singleton, but he has a twin waiting for him in heaven, and he is excited to meet him one day. I say him because there was one placenta, which probably indicates that Theo also was an identical twin. That's a very likely indication of that because that's the first thing that your body does is it makes one placenta, and then you get 2 embryos when they split, and the body just keeps that one placenta to sustain them both. So Theo, singleton birth after a twin birth. And I went to almost 42 weeks with him. And if you guys have heard me talk about Simon and Della's birth stories, you know that I went to 42 weeks with them as well. Kind of drove me nuts. By this point, after going 39 weeks and 4 days with a set of twins, which is practically 2 weeks over in twin world. I mean, not really, but they get kind of antsy when you get that close to 40 weeks and you have monodi twins in your belly. I was kind of pretty chill about the fact that I was going quote unquote over again. I have a longer cycle, so quite likely some of the estimates of my due dates have been a little short of where they should be. So maybe I haven't been fully 2 weeks over, but I was definitely a good 5 to 10 days over, somewhere in that range. Although technically I was 12 days over when I actually had him. So almost 42 weeks. Feeling pretty chill about it because by this point I've decided that the best way to weather those last 2 weeks after you wish you'd already had your baby or were expecting to is to do all the fun things that you won't get to do when he's outside of your belly. So going out to eat with your husband, playing in the yard with your kids as much as your belly allows, eating all the yummy food. I don't know, I eat yummy food after the baby's born too, but going out to eat, that kind of thing. Going on dates. Just finishing projects, whatever kind of suits your fancy, because you kind of feel like you're going to sit around and twiddle your thumbs otherwise. And that drives you crazy, which I had discovered. And so I didn't want to do that again. So I was really pretty content having lots of prodromal labor, lots of practice contractions, lots of things that felt like it could be it, but I wasn't going to pay attention until they really kicked in and got really painful. And then one night it was cold because he was born on December 30th. So it was cold. It was dreary and dark. We just had Christmas. Kind of the after Christmas doldrums were setting in, and I still didn't have a baby in my arms. And my kids went over to my mom's house, not necessarily because I was in labor, but just because they were kind of wanting to go do something fun. And it's in that weird week after Christmas where nobody knows what day it is or what time it is or what's going on. And we said, okay, yeah, you can go do that. So all the kids, minus the one in my belly, were at my mom's house. And Sean was doing something, and I just said, you know what? I'm going to put an audiobook in my ears and I'm just going to walk. And I went to the mall and I just did laps, and I was having contractions, and they were somewhat regular. But again, when you've had so many practice contractions and go so late, you learn not to trust them, or you learn to doubt even the ones that are real. So I'm just doing laps as fast as I can go. I think I was wearing rain boots because it was nasty outside. So I'm just glumping along in my rain boots with this big belly, with this book in my ears. I can't remember. I think I was listening to The Book Thief, maybe. I can't remember exactly. It was probably World War II fiction because that's my favorite genre of books to listen to. And if you're just wanting a suggestion, Codename Verity, because the narration and the story itself is my absolute favorite. So I am just doing laps, probably an hour and a half of laps. And the contractions are intensifying and they're getting closer together. And I'm starting to feel like, maybe I should pay attention to this. So I go home finally. And I think I bring some takeout with me home to Sean. And we have a bunch of clothes to fold. So we turn on a show and we start folding clothes. And at one point I say, hey, maybe you should time these just to see. And they are getting closer together. They're 5 to 7 minutes apart. They're intensifying, but certainly nothing that I can't handle. So we just let my midwife know, like, something might be happening, but don't get too excited. And she's like, I know this routine. Now, I will tell you that this is a different midwife than I have mentioned in other podcasts because, tragically, although I am thankful for the way the Lord orchestrated it, my midwife, Theo, died of a stroke right after my first appointment with her with Theo. So Sean and I had gone on a big trip to Europe, actually, 9 years ago. And I hadn't been able to get in for a meeting with my midwife before that trip. And so afterwards we came in, I was 15 weeks pregnant with Theo. I got to see her one last time. She got to listen to the heartbeat and we got to have a really sweet time of catching up on my trip. She had been on a trip to Ireland, I believe, or Scotland, I can't remember which, and was telling me all about it and showing me pictures. And it was just really lovely to see her again. And then she actually had the stroke the next day and died the day after. So I was grateful that the Lord had allowed me to see her again before she went to be with him. But this was a different midwife. She had been one of the assistants at Abbie and Nola's twin birth. And I love her. Her name is Melina. And so she was taking over for Thalia. And so she was the one that was going to be coming usually about an hour away. It feels like all my midwives have lived about an hour away from where I am. So it's a good thing I don't have precipitous labors as a general rule because they never get there in time. So I let her know something's happening. And then I proceed to have the calmest, chillest time of contracting. Like they're happening every 5 minutes. I'm editing blog pictures. I'm doing laundry. I'm eating snacks. I'm kind of rolling back and forth on the birth ball while my elbows are resting on the bed and I'm working on my laptop on the bed. I remember there's a picture of that. And thinking this is going to be like the twins' birth. It's going to be calm and it's not going to be nasty. And even at the end, it's going to be great because I feel like this is doing some good, but these are so manageable. So about 1 a.m, We call her because they're 3 to 5 minutes apart and they're not stopping and they are intensifying and she has an hour to go. She gets there at about 3 a.m. and checks me and she says, you're almost an 8. And I am just thrilled. I am like, this is going to be my painless birth. I mean, the twins' birth, Abbie and Nola's birth was not painless, but it was very, very, very mild compared to some of my other births. And so I'm like, this is how this is going to go, right? I think you already know the answer to this. The answer is wrong. If I've already told you that the twins' birth is the easiest one that I've had in terms of delivery, then, well, I guess it could be that Theo's was even easier, but the twins' birth was the easiest of all time for me in terms of the actual delivery. So this will not be that. Womp womp. So almost an 8 at 3 a.m. So excited that I get to meet my little boy soon. We had picked his name basically before he was even conceived. Theodore. Sebastian is his name, and that was our favorite combo of names that we had not used yet for boys. And so excited. Well, my body decides to slow down, as it so often does, when I introduce any kind of stimulus to it. And it had started to intensify enough that I was like, I think I want to try a water birth. I'm just going to get in the water and kind of labor in the water for a while. Well, that killed my contractions. Of course it did. That's just how my body does. It says, you want me to go and be calm? Okay, then I'm going to freak out, or you want me to rev up? I'm going to calm down. So I get out of the water because it basically is doing nothing. And I start doing laps around my house. And my midwife, I think, probably was thinking, well, she's almost an 8, but she just doesn't seem like she's in that much pain. And I really wasn't, but I started to be. And one of the things that Melina suggested that I do was to diagonally lunge up our stairs and then diagonally walk back down to try to open up my hips and pelvic area and to just loosen things up because I tend to be kind of tight. And we'd done spinning babies and we had done all the things to kind of try to position better to get everything moving again after it had slowed down when I got in the water. So later on, well after I'd had Theo, I learned that I became quite the joke at the birth center because they said, okay, so I'm a fitness instructor and I love to do hardcore exercise, lift heavy weights, do high impact, do HIIT, do kickboxing, MMA, all of this stuff. And, and they were joking that you should never tell me to lunge the stairs if you're expecting me to just kind of calmly lunge my way upstairs, walk, whatever. I was doing 2 steps at a time as fast as I could go and then jogging back down because I thought that's what they wanted me to do. I wasn't even trying to break any records or anything. This is just kind of what my brain said to do when they said to lunge the stairs diagonally. I'm like, I can do this. Let's go. And so they didn't say anything to me at the time, but apparently afterwards they were just giggling so hard. Like, be careful what you tell Abbie to do because that was like watching somebody try to win an Olympic sport. Like, calm down, lady, calm down. So I did my lunging. I'm doing my laps around the island. I remember at a certain point, it was bad enough that I was walking through our dining room and my knees started to buckle and I'm like grabbing dining room chairs to keep from falling down. But it still doesn't feel like it's really to the point where I can have this baby. So I go back upstairs. I'm having really intense contractions close together. We try the water again. And of course it's going to work this time because these are getting to be freight train contractions. Like, they're not going to stop. They stopped. Literally every 2 minutes, lasting 90 seconds, very intense, to nothing for 8 minutes. And my midwife's like, okay, get out of the water. Like, we gotta do something here. So I've told you before that most of my babies have been delivered while I'm lying on my back. And most people think that that's crazy, especially considering that I do natural births without medication because they think that's the worst thing, most unnatural thing, whatever. However, it allows me to do something which I have trouble doing when I'm on my feet, which is relax. Like I said, I'm, double stair, diagonal lunging like a crazy maniac in the middle of labor. So I have to do things that calm me down and allow my body to release this baby. And so I went and I lay down on the bed and I just breathed. And it was transition. And remember, if you've listened to Ezra's birth story, I did transition on my side in a bed. And I didn't know how to manage with breathing like I do now. And I thought my back was going to break and it was miserable. But this time, although it was very painful and very intense, I was able to control my breathing better and to relax everything that needed to be relaxed and allow that baby to descend. And so my midwife checked me and she said, you are so close. I think you can start pushing if you have an urge. And I just really didn't yet, but I wanted the baby out. So I tried and nothing happened. And then she checked me again and she said, actually, you've got this tiny lip of cervix that if you are not careful and you push before you're ready, could swell and actually block the baby's head. So you're going to have to chill again. Well, that's the last thing in the world that I wanted to hear. And also, backing up, rewinding, at one point we were trying to get things going again before I got back in the water, or maybe after. It's all blurring together. And my midwife had me try pushing standing up because I was having some urges. And something about that position, I know lots of people have delivered standing up, something about the position absolutely panicked my body and my brain. So Sean's like, that hurt so badly. It hurt him so badly because I was like bearing down on his poor quad and like clutching his arm like a claw grip. And so that absolutely did not work. So I always advocate for whatever feels comfortable for the mama that's actually having to get the baby out of her body. So that's when I ended up lying down on the bed. I did make a lot of progress, and then I just had this little lip. So I lay there for another 30 minutes, contracting very intensely and just breathing instead of fighting them, instead of standing up, instead of lunging, instead of squatting, instead of trying to get in the tub. I just let that baby come down and let my body do its thing. And then I was finally able to push. Well, in the past, typically I can get a baby out in 2 or 3 pushes if everything is kind of ready to go. Sometimes it's taken, I think Simon was several more than that. He was hard. But I know some of you who have pushed for 2 or 3 hours are hating me right now. And I just think that you are absolute mama warriors for hanging in there for your babies for that long. That's amazing. But I had never pushed before that for longer than 45 minutes. And so I push him and I feel the ring of fire and I'm like, oh, I'm about to get his head out. And then something weird happens. The contraction stops. I don't have the power to push anymore. And the head didn't crown. And I keep doing this and I keep doing this and I keep doing this. And an hour has gone by and I feel that burning sensation over and over again. And yet I cannot get this baby out. And so I think Melina wasn't necessarily concerned, but was confused because this is not what my body had done in the past. And so at some point I'm getting tired and I'm so determined to get him out that I just keep pushing past the contraction, chin to my chest, just straining with every fiber of my being. And I finally feel the crowning happening, which motivates me to hold my breath and push even harder. And I finally get his head out. And then I ended up having to work for what felt like every inch of his body as he came out. It was just so much harder. And you keep expecting that moment where just a release and the baby is born. And it just didn't happen. And she was helping guide him and she was helping get his shoulders out. And I'm like, what is the deal? Why is this so different? Well, once he was out, I saw her doing this kind of complicated whirligig move with her hands and realized she was unwrapping the cord. It wasn't around his neck, but it was around his shoulders. And so it had basically been acting like a bungee cord. So as I pushed, as soon as I let go of any pressure, the cord pulled him back in because it was tightly wrapped. Okay, I shouldn't say tightly. He wasn't in danger, but it was keeping him from being able to descend. So I have never pushed that hard in my entire life. I felt like I was turning myself inside out. But he was finally born after being an 8 at 3 a.m. He was finally born at about 10:20 that morning. So is that another 7 hours later? Something like that. So I definitely experienced one of those moments of elation of this is going to be so easy compared to what some of them have been. It's going to be like the last birth. This is who I am now. And then realizing, nope, this is not who I am. Every labor is different. Every birth is different. Still had to work hard for that one. And of course, he was still worth it, as they always are. I know that I'm leaving you guys hanging a little bit with, he's number 6. So I have 3 birth stories left. Because obviously Titus and Tobias, we'll count them as one birth story, even though they are 2 births. And I'm not going to get to those before I get back from Europe. However, I should only have a couple of off weeks before I can resume this, and you guys will get the rest of the birth stories when I return. So enjoy your time off from the podcast while we have a break, and I'm going to enjoy my time with my family in Europe. I hope you guys have a great let's see, for me, it will be a month and a half, though I'll be talking to you weekly in the ones that I've pre-recorded since. Love you guys. Thanks so much. If you guys enjoyed today's program, I would be so honored if you would subscribe and share with others. And if you're looking for more daily content on motherhood and biblical responses to cultural issues, you can follow along on Instagram at m.is.or.mama.